everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Real and the Rare. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, along with my co-host, Xavier McKnight. How you doing tonight, Xavier?
Doing well, Scott. Always great to be on with you, and we hope everybody's ready for what we have to dish out in the kitchen tonight, because it is some much-needed information that we are going to be sharing with everyone here tonight.
Boy, isn't it ever. I'll tell you, we live in the Sunshine State, and it's not so sunny when it comes to COVID-19. Go ahead and lead off.
No, it is not sunny here at all, Scott. Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, one thing that we have always emphasized on our show is continuing to tell everyone to take the proper precautions, wear your gloves, wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face, wear your mask, wear your face coverings, whatever it is that you have. Even when it seemed like things were slowing down, we continue to give everyone those same precautions, because we were smart enough to understand this is not over with yet. And the more that the weather has warmed up, we are officially now in summertime. And if you thought it was going to be a problem to keep people off of the beaches back in March and early April, it's going to be, that's an understatement compared to what it's going to be now. It's almost 90 to 95 degrees outside every day. The weather's beautiful, but the times that we are living in are not. We are still fighting social injustice, but COVID-19 has reared its ugly head in the state of Florida, and it is out of control. That's the best way I can put it. The numbers that we had come in this morning, my mouth dropped, and there were no other words I could say for it. But Scott, you have been reiterating this on your social media accounts, and you've also said it on this show. We are noticing that more and more people are continuing to not take this seriously. They are taking this for a joke, and there is going to be a heavy price that is going to be paid as a result of this. And I believe we're starting to see that price paid off. Before I continue, anything you'd like to add in?
Yeah, that price is fatalities, Xavier. Fatalities, folks. We're taking it for granted. Fatalities. Underline it, hyphenate it, 56-pointed fatalities.
Yeah, it's no joke what's going on here today, what's going on in the state of Florida as a whole. We now have confirmed by the Florida Department of Health 3,366 COVID-19 deaths. We barely had over 3,000 at all when the month of June began. But let's talk about that total amount of COVID cases. That's very alarming. You can officially now list Florida as a hot zone. At least the governors in most of the northeastern parts of the country are doing that. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, they are forcing people and residents who are returning from Florida to quarantine for 14 days, because this state now has, according to the Florida Department of Health, these are their confirmed numbers for Friday morning. These numbers are probably not even accurate anymore, but they just haven't been accumulated yet, because we only get one COVID-19 update a day in this state by the Florida Department of Health. But as of 8 a.m. this morning, 11 a.m. this morning, when we usually receive our COVID-19 update in the news industry from the Florida Department of Health, there were 120,960 total cases, with 120,574 being positive Florida residents. How do you like those numbers, Scott?
I don't. And I don't think Governor Ron DeSantis does either.
Well, you know what? Before I go any further, what are your thoughts on how he is handling all of this? Because I don't want to jump to any conclusions. I'm trying to just keep my ears open and just listen to everything that is going on here. What are your thoughts on how our governor is handling all of this right now?
Well, my question is there any governor that can handle it in the state of Florida? That's the biggest thing. And the way I look at it right now, I find it hard to believe that any governor would be able to really go ahead and deal with that. I really do. Because
it is so much that's going on, and here's the trend that everyone needs to pay attention to. It's now trending in a younger direction, and we mainly understand why. Lots of young people in this state, lots of people visiting this state who are not social distancing, they are not wearing masks, and just have no regard for life, health, and death right now. And the COVID-19 cases are now trending in the direction of the age groups of 20 to 35. Now, that doesn't mean that those who are at most risk are officially out of the danger zone. No, they're still the most in the danger zone. The survival rate still remains great. But the problem with saying that is that we are watching these deaths multiply day after day after day. I don't want to reiterate what Vice President Mike Pence said, but I'll reiterate it here. One death from this was already far too many. And now we have 3,366 in this state alone. Worldwide, we have over 1.6 million deaths. And you might look at that number, ladies and gentlemen, and go, well, our society is still so much bigger than that. These numbers keep getting bigger. That's the point I just don't believe everybody's looking at, Scott. I mean, the numbers, they just continue to get bigger, and you can look at it as a society of, well, we have this many people, and it's just this amount of people, and it's unfortunate that they're dying, but it's still a very small percentage. Those percentages are now starting to get bigger, and that is what I have paid attention to the entire time involved in this thing. Even in early May, when it seemed like COVID-19 may have been slowing down a little, I was still going out and I was still wearing my mask. I was still wearing all of my protective gear. I was social distancing, being away from people as far as I could, because I understood that this was not over. Scott, I understand that you have been doing the same thing as well.
Of course. I've been wearing my mask, but then again, you know what, Xavier, with all due respect, you know what my routine is like? Stay at home, go to studio, stay at home, go to studio. If I'm lucky, okay, I might go to Subway, and then I'll go ahead and have my mask on, get my lunch, take it to the office, okay, go to Walmart, okay, once a week, and that's about it. I mean, really. I mean, the way I look at it is it's pretty simple. I don't even trust this whole thing to begin with, so why would I even bother to take a chance to do something that I predicted is we were going to have a second phase anyhow? Really? I mean, that's what I've always thought. Folks just took this whole thing for granted. And you know what? I don't know when I'm going to be eating at restaurants on a regular basis. And in fact, I've gotten used to not eating at restaurants, except that for that rare occasion. I'm as bad as a cook as I am. I'm finding a way to make lunch when I'm not out there doing what I've got to do. But you know what, Xavier? I've been predicting all along. I don't trust COVID-19. I just don't. And you know what? I won't for a long, long time. We don't have a vaccine yet. No vaccine. Until we get a vaccine, good luck.
And Scott, the more sad part of all this is Dr. Anthony Fauci, the man who we trust to be the best at researching all of this right now in our country. He has been warning all along, even when it seemed that the spread of COVID was slowing down towards late April, early May, and we watched things slowly begin to open back up. He was still continuing to warn everyone, hey, this isn't over yet. We haven't found a vaccine for this yet, and a second wave could be looming. And there are so many people out there that are like, oh, that's just Fauci. He's just trying to spew fear amongst the people and to try to prevent people from doing whatever they want. I've never known Dr. Fauci to have those types of intentions, even though I didn't know who the man was before this pandemic started anyway. But everything he's come out so far has absolutely been true. So, folks, who do you believe you should be listening at? The man who is researching all of this, finding out everything that he can about it, or people who are just looking at the information that comes out day by day by the different Department of Health in the state and in the country and over and around the world? They come out and they say, well, you know, we're handling this the best way that we can. We're getting a good handle on this. And I'm not doubting that there are some out there who are handling this the best way that they can. But this is a situation where people, you have to use your own common sense here. You have to use your own judgment. You have to have some discipline here. And one of the danger zones about the state of Florida right now in particular is the fact that we know everybody wants to go to the beach right now. That's no hidden secret. It's the end of June. We're going into July. It's the beginning of summertime. The weather's very nice outside. And they don't call this the Sunshine State for no reason.
Right.
People who live here want to go to the beach, want to go to the pools, People who don't live here want to come and take short vacations here to go to the beaches and to go to the pools. We understand that. But right now, we are dealing with a situation that is the difference in between life, health, and death. And what do you care about more? I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions and say this, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Many of the people out here that we have seen in this state who are being interviewed by these news outlets and are going to these commissioners' meetings and letting their voices be heard, even though their voices are not on the right side of any of this, clearly we see what they have a regard for, Scott. They just want to go out and they want to have fun. They want to live for the moment. And normally, part of me would actually respect that, but not in this case. Because if you want to put your own self in danger, you go ahead and do that. But that is not right, and that is not fair to everyone else that you have to go around, that you may have to be around on a daily basis.
Well, the reality of the situation is everybody's taking this whole thing for granted, period. They're not wearing the mask. You just said it yourself, right? They're not wearing the mask. When you have 16 people going to a Florida bar and all 16 get COVID-19, I'm going to go back to what I said in the previous broadcast. It doesn't take a math lesson to go 16, and 16 is you're batting 1,000, right? 16 for 16, unless my math has gone down south really quick. But now, forget the 16 for 16. You already talked about the astronomical numbers to begin with. And you know what? When you have nearly 9,000 in one day, what's it going to be tomorrow? What's the over-under? You tell me. This isn't no sporting event.
I am not looking forward to seeing these numbers tomorrow. I already was not looking forward to seeing the numbers today. I didn't think they would balloon the way that they did. I thought they would stay in the ballpark range of where they've been for most of the week, which is also not encouraging because we just had our single-day increase for the state just 2 days prior to today before that record was reset. On Wednesday, we had a single-day increase of 5,508 cases. On Thursday, we had those cases drop, but they stayed just a little above 5,000 in the increase range. And as Scott just said, we all woke up this morning to the news that Florida had over 9,000 cases and a little less than 9,000 cases, I should say, in a 24-hour time period. And let it be known, these are the numbers that are being confirmed. This might not even be all of the cases that we know about. And like you said, Scott, what type of surprise are we in for tomorrow?
TBD, Xavier. TBD. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely to be declared, and I'm not really looking forward to it. But I'll just go ahead and share some things that I've noticed this week that are just of huge concern to me. I've had to watch commissioners' meetings for the different counties that we cover at WWSB, Sarasota and Manatee County this week. In particular, the Manatee County Commissioners meeting. And there were no mask mandates that were issued for the county as a whole, even though there were discussions about it being had. But if anything, Scott, it's probably been more entertainment than I've seen on my TV in the past few months. And it's not the good kind of entertainment, I should say, because there are citizens who are welcome to speak in these commissioners' meetings, and they are urging the commissioners, or at least 1 to 2 of them in particular were urging commissioners to please not mandate masks. They want to continue to believe that the mask should be voluntary. We should not be forced to have to wear masks. And we have to take everyone and their feelings into consideration here. We can't make people just do things that they don't want to do. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, are we not paying attention to what is going on a day-to-day basis, especially this week with the COVID-19 numbers that are coming out? Are we really trying to just eject ourselves from the reality that we all are living in right now? Are we really that much in denial? Well, I see numbers rising up by 5,500, 5,000, and then by almost 9,000 in a day. And I'm sitting here and I'm just wondering, okay, any day now, we're going to hear the NBA come out and say that this bubble plan to come back with their plan to play inside of the bubble in Orlando at Disney World, any day now, I'm planning on hearing Adam Silver say that we are not going to be coming back to play.
Right, I hear you. Yeah, in other words, you're trying to tell me the bubble's going to burst, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me give you a little trivia here, okay, Xavier? What state am I from originally?
Michigan.
Bingo, my goodness. He's 1 for 1. Well, you know what? Once upon a time, Michigan was one of the first that had the seatbelt law. If you didn't have a seatbelt, okay, they were going to nail you for it. You know what? What happened? A lot of states now make you wear a seatbelt. People resisted at the time. They didn't want to go ahead and do it, but you know what? And now it became I'm pretty sure just about every state in the country has a seatbelt law. Well, guess what? You know what? People don't want to protect themselves from themselves. So you know what? The state, the federal government, going to do it for you. So right now, I don't know if you can get people to wear a mask forever. I mean, that's a different story. But the seatbelt law came into a lot of resistance, and ultimately, it was unilaterally implemented throughout the country over the course of time. Another law that we're dealing with over the years has been the Non-Smoking the Clean Air Act here in, what do you know, the Sunshine State. Forget about the non-smoking section in a restaurant. You can't smoke. Anything that forces you to go out there and protect yourself, at some point we're going to have to do it. If you don't protect yourself, at least respect the others. So whether it's seatbelt law, not Clean Air Act, whatever the case is, you know, what can I tell you, Xavier? That summarizes it. So they're going to force you to do it one way or the other. That's how I view it. And I'm sure there's other examples, but think about this, Xavier. The seatbelt law, Clean Air Act, and now what do we have? Face masks that you have to wear. My goodness, that's the price you got to pay. Who's going to benefit? Oh, maybe the doctors will go ahead, get paid. Maybe the hospitals, the insurance companies will go broke. We have an economy with a stimulus package that can only go ahead and hold you down. Maybe there'll be another stimulus package. I had an accountant on the air earlier in the week that said there might be stimulus too. Of course, nobody wants to hear that. We're only concerned about COVID-19. Okay, what about, does Major League Baseball actually get off the ground? Remember, here in the Sunshine State, ever heard of the Miami Marlins? Ever heard of the Tampa Bay Rays? Guess what? They play here, right? Okay. So, what are you going to do? What about the spring training facilities that were shut down in the Sunshine State? My goodness. In the NBA, the first one that went out there and shut down, and then everybody followed suit. Guess what? They may be the first one with a bubble burst. What about the WNBA in your background, in your backyard, I should say, out in Bradenton? Do you think the WNBA, we're talking about caretakers and mothers, is actually going to get going? That's right.
No, I do not. I believe any day now we're going to hear that their plan to begin their season is not going to happen. Nothing has been ruled out yet, because we already know the main reason people want to use this as a last source type of resort here. There's a lot of money that can be made with these leagues coming back. Of course, no one wants to lose money. But as I said, right now, what needs to be the most important to us is life, health, and potentially death. Even though death is something that we don't have control over. We're all going to leave here at some point. But I would like to believe that we were all blessed with brains that allow us to think and have common sense and make judgments for ourselves, to where we don't necessarily have to expedite our processes of necessarily being taken out of here. And I'm watching the WNBA players in particular. Many of them have already said that they're not going to return to play for different concerns, some of them involving COVID, some of them involving social injustices, some of them involving just wanting to protect their families in general. And I actually applaud them for that. So I don't believe that we're going to see the WNBA take place in Bradenton. I know that plans are being finalized and things are being put in place, but bubbles are going to get bursted here, people, because Scott and I are here in the state of Florida. We're on different portions of it, but we're all still here in this state. And we're watching this on a day-by-day basis. And the numbers that we received this morning, those numbers were so high that all bars in the state are no longer allowed to serve people alcohol inside of the bars. Now, they can still sell it to them as they take it out, but you can no longer even sit down and go and have a drink at a bar right now, which honestly I have no problem with whatsoever, because We learned on Tuesday that a bar in Orlando was actually shut down near the University of Central Florida, and they have temporarily had their alcohol license suspended because they were not controlling the environment inside of the building. They had people who were not practicing social distancing, and they were not enforcing social distancing. And Scott, we already knew that this was going to happen once these businesses started to open back up. We already knew that it was going to be a case in some businesses of, well, I'm going to get as much money as I possibly can out of this. I'm going to make as much as I can. We've been shut down for the better part of 2 months now, and there's revenue and there's money to be made. Some businesses just simply didn't have the control over controlling other people of what they're going to do, or at least you would just think that that was the option there, and people wouldn't necessarily want to put people's lives at risk. But that bar in particular in Orlando, they have temporarily had their license suspended until further notice. We do not know when they're going to get it back. They are the only bar that I have heard of in this state that has had their license suspended as of now. But all bars, as far as people going to bars and trying to sit down and have a drink, those days are over for right now, people. And personally, I applaud the state for doing this once again. Make people get somewhere and sit their butts down and take this seriously. Because, like I said earlier, if you want to put yourself at risk, if you don't want to protect yourself, that's fine. That's between you, yourself, and whatever you believe in. If you believe in anything, you believe in any creator, any maker. But that's not fair to everyone else that you may necessarily have to go around on a daily and weekly basis, who they're just going out there because they have to get their necessities. They're just going out there because they have to get up and go to work. They're not doing this because they want to go out and have leisure time and they want to go out and they want to have a fun time. No, they still understand that this thing is serious here, and you could potentially be putting someone else at risk because of your negligence and your irresponsibility. Scott, your thoughts?
I'm not crying that the bars are closing. That's where a lot of the problems start. Problems start all over the place. They really are. You know, we can use the bars as a scapegoat if we want to. The reality is, like you said, where is common sense? Don't think there is any, right? Do you? How many times have people been warned? What about all these first responders? Okay, their jobs become more difficult. What about the people in the medical profession who go out there and risk their lives? Let me tell you, I had 2 doctor's appointments this week. One at the beginning of the week out in Baptist Health System down in Miami. And I'll tell you what, going through that was just as bad as going through an airport with all the different checks that were in place. What about my family doctor, where all I was doing was getting a simple blood test, and all of a sudden that 1 minute check-in turned out to be 10 minutes. You know, and that was easy compared to the one I had to deal with Monday all the way out in Miami. I mean, that was like 20, 25 minutes of prep. I used to think going to the airports were bad. Tell you what, but I understand it. I wasn't upset about it. Maybe I didn't prepare a little advance, to go to a place like that. But I'll tell you what, I don't like to fly anyhow. Now I drive. If I ever have to go back to Michigan on an emergency, I'll go ahead and jump in my vehicle and hit the road. So, there's so many different, what I'm telling you, Xavier, there's so many different intangibles and variables involved that so many people don't even realize. They just don't. And you know what's so disturbing about it, okay? First of all, we were talking about the older folks being susceptible, but now the younger ages are more susceptible. Do you really think that with a lot of these younger people, when they're getting it, they're negligent? Everybody jumped on some of the coaches out there saying, the young guys can go ahead and get over it faster. Wasn't one of them Mike Gundy, I think, for Oklahoma State?
Yes, it was.
Right, so you got Mike Gundy.
And we know that he has a history of saying idiotic things anyway, but I'll save that story for another day.
No, but let's refer to it a little bit. That he may have been saying an idiotic thing, but maybe he isn't so far-fetched, knowing full well that now we're finding out that maybe there is a trend that younger people can get it. But the question is, how about their immune system? Are they able to recover a little quicker? Yeah, I'm not telling you that Mike Gundy's a saint, but maybe this guy was a little smarter than we thought we were. Right? In terms of recovery time?
Yes, I definitely agree with that, because, young people, they do tend to have stronger immune systems as opposed to older people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're not saying that about all young people. because we know there are cases where people, no matter their age, can have a compromised immune system. They might have underlying conditions. They may have other illnesses that they're fighting against. But I definitely understand what you're saying there. But how about this as well, Scott? 14 more football players at Clemson today, we learned, have tested positive for COVID-19. And I continue to look at that and I just go, how in the world are we going to have a college football season? How are we going to have sports coming back in general anyway? And here's something else I want to know. The College of Morehouse College in Atlanta, they have become the first scholarship-based program to suspend football and fall athletics for the fall semester of this upcoming school year. And this is just the start of something that I believe we're going to start seeing more and more of as we go into the next week.
Well, it's amazing how you mentioned that, because on yesterday's edition of the Sports Exchange, Mel Farr, our regular guest on the program, said, you know what, I'm not worried about the NFL players. Okay, we realize canceling their season, but what about the college players? So Mel Farr was emphatic during that broadcast, Xavier. Does anybody care about these college players, whether it's football, basketball, whatever? Come on, somebody's got to care about these kids. We all got on DJ Durkin over the University of Maryland because you had a casualty out there, and I believe it was McNair, right? I'm trying to remember who it was. Don't remember the first name, but anyways, and that's not the point. Where the kid died because of DJ Durkin. Well, now you're putting the fate of these young college athletes in the hands of the coaches, and they're trying as hard as they can to do damage control, is what we're talking about. So now you have another. And what about the state? What about Texas has a big spike, right? Florida. You got Florida State, University of South Florida, Miami, Florida Atlantic, Central Florida. Texas, you have Texas A&M. These are some of the hot spots. I'm just naming off universities with the hot spots. What about California, UCLA, USC? The beat goes on and on. So will this be the beginning of a trend? Probably. And yet, guess what, Xavier? I don't know about you, but I looked at my watch right now, and I'm looking at June 26th. Okay, tell me where we're going to be 30 days from now, come July 26th. What. So, with all due respect, you're really right. College sports, I kind of wonder, will there be a college season, let alone an NFL season? How many times have we gone on there and saying, will there be? We don't know. I mean, all we're doing is looking at speculation. The NFL will be making adjustments along the lines. But in the end, I think the one that you really have to believe the most right now is I do think you have to believe in Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's been the guy that's leading this whole charge anyhow. This guy knows what he's talking about. Who else would you believe? You're not going to believe the President of the United States, are you? He's the one who was...
Absolutely not.
Right. I mean, this guy didn't use proper judgment. He took this thing for granted. And Donald Trump didn't use proper leadership. And we took it all lightly. How did that work out? Don't even want to talk about it, because I think the numbers speak for themselves all over the place, all over the globe. You tell me.
No, I definitely agree with you there. And here's the difference. And I want to, before I say it, I'm not making an excuse, or I'm not making light of either one of these incidents. They're both absolutely a tragedy that is going on right now. A young man losing his life under the tutelage and what was supposed to be leadership of DJ Durkin at Maryland. That was not leadership at all. That was just a terrible form of coaching. Here's the difference in between that and what we have going on right now. There wasn't a collective $4 billion that was at risk. Let's just tell the truth here. We know that this is all about money. Scott, when I first learned that if there is no NCAA football season this year, that potentially $4 billion could be lost, the first thing I said was, they're going to do everything they can to try and play, to try to preserve that money and to try to get that in. Because if they do play, you can depend on there not being any fans. People are still going to watch. People will watch empty football games with just players out there playing in games, even if there are no fans out there, even though it would be a totally different experience as opposed to what we are used to watching. But It's a money game here. We understand that. That's why the NBA pushing so hard to come back. And it's not necessarily the leagues that are pushing or that are running the money game here, or they're pushing back so hard so they can make the money. There are sponsors at risk here. There are TV network deals that are at risk here. A lot of money on the line. And they want to do everything they can to try to preserve it. We understand that. We already know what's really going on here. Should it be going on? Absolutely not. But we know what's going on.
Well, yeah, everybody knows it's a money play. Well, we both know that. I mean, with all due respect, that's what's driving the whole thing to begin with. If it were up to me, I'd go out there and just say cancel. I'm not the one who's we're talking about. The player that's in question, by the way, you know, we're talking about DJ Durkin, but the player in question that I'm looking up right now as we speak, and that's landing him on the unemployment line. The controversy that we're talking about here, it happens to be Jordan McNair. He's the guy that lost his life over this whole debacle. Now we're asking everybody out there, all these coaches, to look out for these young student athletes. So, but again, we can't compare anything. But we're talking about the nature of the situation is what we're talking about. These coaches are entrusted to make sure that these student athletes are protected. That's what we're talking about. And they're working out for them. But then again, don't we all? Right?
Yes,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, and you know, when they were bringing the student athletes back to campuses, both high school and college, because high school athletes are also high school student athletes in Florida, they're back on their stadiums and their fields, and they're competing at their schools as well. I wanted to know what the plan was. How did you plan on trying to prevent them from catching COVID-19 or catching any other diseases out there when the clarity has not necessarily been given for, okay, yes, let's go ahead. It's safe to go ahead and have all of these players and these coaches in one place at one time now.
But
that was never said.
But Xavier, does anybody really know what the plan is? Really? Do they?
No.
Exactly.
No.
That's my point.
No.
Thank you. That's my point. Nobody knows what the plan is. They're all trying to figure it out. They are. Everybody. You talked about the Clemson 14 players there. How many more college athletes? You know, forget. And let's think about this in terms of COVID-19. I mean, we'll just talk whether it's pros, college, whatever. Okay. What happens if a position room gets affected and all 5 of these guys? Let's just say wide receivers. 5 wide receivers in the position room. They all get COVID-19. Then what do you do? Then what? What about the offensive linemen? You're going to go out there and pick up wide receivers off the streets? You got to pick up offensive line off the seats? Have you ever been inside an NFL stadium? I think you were when we were over at Hard Rock Stadium together, but have you ever been down there and looked at all the different rooms within the facility where these guys are? Have you? Well, you have all these guys locked into a room, right, Xavier? Okay, within close proximity. You can get it, right?
Yes, you definitely can, for sure. And see, this is why my feelings about all of this is sports should not come back right now.
Right.
And I have felt this way from day one of the start of this pandemic. When we saw how serious this thing was becoming, I said, okay, you know, we need to keep everything at bay right now. We need to keep everything suspended.
I guess the question is, we all have to wonder, when is reality going to really hit everybody in the sports world or not? Right now you have a bunch of people, I hate to use the word house arrest, because everybody is under house arrest when you're quarantined. Never thought you'd be in house arrest, would you? A la quarantine. Well, guess what? If it's good for you, it's good for you, right? But the reality situation is we are. So for those people that don't know how to cook, you better learn how to cook quick. Otherwise, you're going to be in the hospital, and I don't think I've been in enough hospitals to realize that the food in the hospital isn't very good. Of course, some hospitals might be good, but I'm not trying to miss the whole point.
Well, not only that, Scott, but the panic amongst people is also back. And I say that because I went to Walmart this evening, and there were not any paper towels.
Go early in the morning,
Xavier. When this whole thing started, we saw that there was a huge shortage on paper towels and tissue at most of these stores. And when they would have it back in stock, if you weren't there within the first hour or two, you probably weren't going to get it that day. I believe we're now headed back in that direction as well.
Can I give you some Walmart advice? Take it from a pro. Get there at 7:30 in the morning because I don't go late no more. I've learned the hard way. Get there at 7:30 in the morning. That's what I do. Of course, I don't know what your schedule is, but we do. And I'm not joking about it. I'm really serious. You want to get to these places earlier. Aldi's, I would get it. I'd go wherever I can get it early. I'm an early morning person. Again, I don't sleep unless I have enough sleeping medication to help me get there. And I'm not joking about it. I'm very serious, okay? But you're right. The shortages will start occurring as these spikes continue to increase. That's inevitable. It happened before. It happened then. I remember when we first came back from Arizona, okay, and people were scared, panicking. You couldn't find toilet paper. We're all over the place until people ultimately stocked up on it. All these little things that we didn't think were important are what they are. You see it on social media every day. I don't like watching the local news, but unfortunately I'm forced to every now and then watch the local news because in my neck of the woods, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County are adversely affected by what's going on. And once upon a time, we got all these New York people migrating to our neck of the woods down I-95 19 hours. And now we get them. And I'm not picking on our New Yorkers to the north, okay? But the road to I-95 leads to COVID-19, but now it's in reverse order. So I've been saying it all along. I can't see my mother because of COVID-19, and she's terminally ill right now because of COPD. Well, I'll tell you what, when she sees social media, and we're talking 9,000 cases, that didn't get me any closer to Birmingham, Michigan, because of what's going on in the Sunshine State. Then again, I'm probably not the only one in that predicament anyways. I'm probably in a big pond of people that can't see their family members, especially while they're seriously ill. But when you put the whole thing in perspective, Xavier, here's the reality. How many times have we said on the broadcast, Xavier, be safe, be smart? Well, guess what, Xavier? Nobody's being safe. Nobody's being smart. Right? Are they practicing?
And we will continue to reiterate that message as well. But as I've already said, and Scott, you've alluded to it too, people have to use their own judgment and their own form of common sense here. There is no plan in place right now with this entire thing. No one has any way of trying to control this thing right now. We don't have a vaccine for it right now. And if you really care about yourself and you really care about others, you have to use your own judgment and your own common sense right here that tells you stay at home unless you absolutely have to go out. And
right.
I'm glad you brought up that point of not being able to visit your mother really quickly, because it's where I want to go next with this conversation. And we do continue to wish her well, by the way. I want to just say this. We're starting to see hospitals now that we're starting to loosen up with visitation. Yeah, we're now starting to see those COVID-19 restrictions be put back in place.
Right.
And, you know, I haven't seen any definite reports yet, but I'm just wondering how many beds, especially in the ICU units, do these hospitals in our state even have right now? Because these numbers are very alarming, and they're also very overwhelming.
Well, let me tell you this. If anybody thinks that I'm going to bash Governor Ron DeSantis, wrong program. I'm not going to bash him. I wouldn't go ahead and bash former Governor Robert Graham, whom I did have the pleasure to meet many years ago when I lived in Florida. Anybody going to ever bash Lawton Childs? I don't think he's alive anymore. No. I don't care what governor is residing in Tallahassee. I won't bash him because Florida's a different animal, okay? It's a tourist state. There's a lot of transplants that come all over the place. I will not bash Governor Ron DeSantis. It is a thankless job, period, to be the governor in this state. It really is. He's inheriting all these people from all over the place.
This is a conversation where we have to remind people that there's one more thing that we still have to deal with this year in the midst of everything that's still going on. Hurricane season is upon us. It officially started June 1st, but we know hurricane season doesn't usually affect Florida and our area until some point in August, maybe early September, sometimes as late as October. But that's still upon us. So we now have this pandemic here that is absolutely growing out of control day by day, and we still have to deal with the looming threat of hurricane season, which is not said to be very fair or promising for us.
Yeah, you're right. There's your double whammy right there. Hurricane season, COVID-19. You weren't alive when this show was on, but I remember that's where the age thing comes into play, okay? You might have to do a little Google on this one. You ever heard that game show, Truth or Consequences?
No, I have not.
I didn't think so. Bob Barker used to have that before he got into The Price is Right. Google it up, Truth or Consequences. Reality is that Truth or Consequences, hurricane season, COVID-19. For all us older guys out there close to Social Security will know it. For all you young guys, Google it up. Truth or Consequences, game show, Bob Barker. But that's what you have. COVID-19, hurricane season. We have it rough in Florida. There's no question about it. But that's not going to stop people flocking here, a bunch of geese and being a part of our home state. I love the state of Florida. I love living in this area. I don't miss wearing jackets anymore. I haven't gotten into the flip-flop thing, but don't miss the jackets. But the reality of the situation is it's not getting any easier for us. It isn't. The reality is... No,
it's not. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, ladies and gentlemen, but we have a responsibility to tell you the truth on this program, as we do on all of our programs here on this network. And I know that's not what everybody wanted to hear. That's not what everybody needed to be reminded of, or they wanted to be reminded of. But it is what you needed to be reminded of. Yeah, I mean, we just have to take everything into all seriousness right now. Because, Scott, you've already said it, none of us have any idea where we're going to be a month from now on July 26th. We don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure none of us expected to wake up today and to see the state almost have an increase of 9,000 cases of COVID-19 in just one day. That's
mind-boggling, isn't it? Mind-boggling. We were all whining about 5,511. All of a sudden, this number hits you out of the sky? Yeah, okay. Please. What's it going to be tomorrow? We're going to go ahead and crash 10,000?
I don't want to make any speculations on that. I'll just wait for the numbers to come out. Because as I've already said many times throughout tonight's show, and I'll say it again, I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm not have to speculate. The reality is I would have thought we were close to 9,000. But that's okay. We'll let the numbers bear themselves out. If we don't talk about it, Xavier, you know what's going to happen? Okay? Social media, Facebook, Twitter. You're going to get there. I'm sure that your local, your employer will. What are you, the ABC affiliate out in Bradenton? Is that correct?
It's in Sarasota.
Right. So you're going to Sarasota, Bradenton. They're all going to talk about the numbers. After all, that's just where we're at, right? You don't have to.
Yes, of course.
There's tons of ways to get your news.
This is why I say I'll just wait for the numbers, because I'm usually one of the people that has to write up these reports for our web to report the numbers that are coming in.
Right.
And at this point, I'm just, after today, I'm just at a no shock point anymore with this. If the numbers go down, if they increase, I'm just now at a point with this whole thing, like, you know what? Whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
This all is alarming, but when you have people who are fighting so hard to not want to wear masks, they don't want to social distance, and they want to do whatever they want to do and have no regard for anyone else, this is part of what you end up with.
It's true. That's true. Ignore us, because you'll find yourself in the hospital before long. You will.
So I just want to say this before we prepare to close our program.
Sure.
I know that the NBA came out with a schedule tonight for the games that are planned for their return to planned play inside the bubble at Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I know that the plan has basically been finalized and everyone's getting excited to see some basketball. Don't hold your breath. don't hold your breath on this. I don't care about plans being put in place. Until this stuff is actually happening and you're actually watching live games take place again, especially with all this stuff that's scheduled to take place in Florida, and we just went through a whole show of the growing rapid increase of COVID-19 cases that are taking place. And it should be noted that Commissioner Adam Silver has said there is a chance that we do not return to play because there is a growing concern of COVID-19 in the Orlando area and where the bubble is expected to take place. So there is a great chance that this bubble ends up getting bursted and you all don't end up getting to see NBA basketball this year.
Well, let me ask you a question, okay? Could you imagine an NBA Finals where Giannis is playing LeBron James with COVID-19? Everybody thought that Magic Johnson getting HIV, which is the virus that leads to AIDS, and they thought that was a death sentence. So just figure this: Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing, and LeBron James has COVID-19. Where how many people are going to take a deep breath and said, "Holy moly"? Well, I mean, I'm sure James is so well conditioned, but it's not the point. But James is out there quarantined, and Giannis said, "I've got a ticket to a title." Forget about the old Memorex commercial where I break the glass, okay? Because I don't know if you remember the old Memorex commercial and the old singing. I don't know. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Then I'll tell you what, I don't want to break the commercial. I don't want your hearing to go bad on this broadcast, okay? But think about it. You're an NBA guy, right? Giannis Antetokounmpo against LeBron James. Giannis is playing, LeBron James is in the hotel. Digest that one. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts are that I am just like everyone else in the sense that I would love for the NBA to come back. But here's where my reality and my train of thought is, and it was at this point before Kyrie Irving and a players' coalition came out wanting to sit out to continue to fight social injustice. I've come on this program numerous times and said, no, I don't want to see the NBA. I don't want to see sports come back, period. I care more about life and health right now and doing everything we can to try to prevent people from contracting bad health and trying to slow the spread of COVID-19. We can't say stop the spread. We can only say slow it. And with the precautions that were initially put in place, that spread was being slowed down. But we saw as things open back up, Florida now currently in phase 2 of its reopening period, we saw what happened. Things absolutely have ballooned out of control, and I don't anticipate that they're going to slow down anytime soon unless Governor DeSantis does the one thing that I already know he more than likely is not going to do, and that is shut the state of Florida down. I don't anticipate on him doing that.
Well, put yourself in my situation, okay, Xavier? I do an average of about 8 shows a week. 8, okay? Could be more, not much less, right? And I hear it all the time. I don't mind it, don't get me wrong, because that's all we got going right now. It's our job to inform. That's our responsibility in the media, whether you like us or not, to inform, okay? And I'm sitting in this chair 8 times average, 8, maybe 6 one week, but for the most part 8. And you know what? We still have no sports. We're still seeing the Korea Baseball Organization play. Major League Baseball probably saved face by at least agreeing to a schedule, but whether or not we pull it off is another story. Again, show to be determined. You come on the Sports Exchange, you talk about that one. You follow me? But the reality of the situation is none of the spring training facilities in Florida or Arizona, you can't get to them because they're all cleaning the darn things, right? So, you know, I listen to it many, many times during the week. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. But you put yourself, how would you feel if you were in my situation, broadcasting about 8 shows a week, hearing it all? You tell me how you'd react to that.
It would be a lot to have to carry.
Yeah,
especially with the information that it is that we have to get out.
I've had to deal with a lot of these.
We also understand that with the positions that we sit in, we have to get that information out.
Right. You're in the news business. You know, as difficult as it was for me, but I had no problem doing it with the Black Matters and the social injustices. I didn't mind doing those shows because that's what we have to talk about, and we know where we're firm with our positions, where we've stood on important issues. Well, here we are, back at it again, COVID-19. What's the big? What is the summer going to be known for? COVID-19, or is it going to be known for social injustice? Well, you know what they call it in Vegas. we'll call it a push, right? Because after all, COVID-19 started before things got out of control with social injustice. And, to me, it's a root of two evils. You're in a catch-22. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Think about me for a minute, okay? I'm thinking, what is my fall schedule supposed to look like? All right, covering some Florida Atlantic University games. Still waiting to see on that one. I have the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm anticipating during the good season that Candy and I will probably be going anywhere between 10 and 16 football games, if not more than that, during the course of during the fall. We don't know whether that'll happen, but I still have to make plans to cover these games and be able to get to as many as I can. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, okay, Sebring 12 Hours or IMSA in November. Mention, now I don't have to worry about hockey because they're going to have a hub anyways. And I don't know what's going to happen with the Marlins. And again, does anybody know what's going to happen with any of the baseball teams? I'm not going down to Miami to cover Marlins games this year because that's where Dade County is the root of it all. But I'm not worried about that. I have a good relationship with anyhow. But when you put things in perspective, I have a schedule that could be unbelievably out of control. But I'm okay with it. I'm determined and challenged by it, and I'm ready to meet the cause because that's what we're supposed to do. So I'd like to think that the summer of 2020 could be something to remember, but it may be, but for all the wrong reasons. Which one's worth, COVID-19 or racial injustice? Push. Well, that should be the right answer, right?
It's a push.
Right.
It's a push. I mean, there's no way you can sit here and say, well, this one is worse than this one because no, they're both equal. They're both equal. They're both, as you said, two absolute evil entities.
Right. Yeah, it is. Everything matters now. I mean, everything matters. COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, it all matters. And by the way, so does hurricane season for us here in Florida. Right? Am I going to get crucified for making those comments? Probably not. Do you think Bob Graham could have handled this any different than Governor Ron DeSantis? Probably not. No. Florida's a melting pot. Right? Transplant, tourist.
Absolutely.
Melting pot. It's not like you're in Michigan where anybody's clamoring to go to Michigan or Georgia or wherever as a tourist trap. Wisconsin, whatever the state you live in, they're all coming here. You get them, I get them. The road from, you know how far I-75 goes? All the way from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, all the way down to Miami, passing your neck of the woods. Does anybody know where I-95 goes? All the way up from Maine, all the way down here to Miami. The double M's, right? Direct interstates. And by the way, for all those people that need a geography lesson, anybody want to know that I-10 goes from Los Angeles all the way to Jacksonville? All leads to us, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And, we'll get ready to close off this program. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't take anything else out of this, just understand that we are living in times that we have never lived in before, and everything matters. As Scott said, everything is serious, and COVID-19 is still very much alive and well. Whether you are living in the state of Florida right now and listening to this show, whether you are listening in a hot zone area right now, or whether you are not, understand that this thing has not gone away at all.
And you know what? It's not going away any sooner either. It isn't. Think about it. Has the Japanese played baseball lately? They don't know what the heck's going on. What about the Chinese basketball league? Don't you follow? You're a big basketball guy. Didn't their season get shut down? I don't see them coming back. The little I know about basketball, although I probably know more than I lead on. How many of these other leagues have reappeared? I don't see David Copperfield walking through this room. Do you?
No.
Abracadabra, alakazam, let's make sports appear. No way. Where is David Copperfield when we need him? He ain't going to bail us out this time. I guess I can pick on David Copperfield because you and I like to kid around with Rick Pitino, right? Larry Bird ain't walking through that door. Kevin McHale ain't walking through that door. Try to add a little humor to this real and the real, right? Because you and I are real. We're definitely real, aren't we?
Definitely are.
And if I get any more caffeine, it'll be 2 sleepless nights in a row. Of course, my other half will probably go out there and say, I don't think so.
So I just want to close this out by saying that I hope that we have provided you all with a great form of information this evening, because the purpose of tonight's episode was not to entertain you. It was to keep you informed on what is going on in the real world right now. Because that's what's more important than anything.
That's true. Folks, we're not, this isn't the Happy Herald here, okay? It isn't the Happy Herald. And I'm not knocking any publication called the Happy Herald. I'm just making that up as an example. We're here to inform. We're in the media. We're in the news business. How many of you people will even listen to this and get the message? I don't know. But if our broadcast affects one person, okay, and we save a life with one person, I feel like the X-Man and I did our job. And if you're going to hear from us, there's a zillion other broadcasts out there. You're going to hear it anyhow. But whether you hear it or you listen or you find out the hard way, then so be it. The Real and the Rare is a broadcast where not only in the past have we spoken about sports, but I'll tell you what, Xavier, we both know that our target is to make sure we get as many non-sports related subjects on here, right, Xavier? And why are we here to do that?
Because we are here to be real, we are here to be rare, but more importantly than anything, we are here to provide the truth and proper information.
And we don't ignore the tough issues. That's the key. We don't do it. There will be a point at one point that we're going to talk about capital punishment. That's inevitable. And I'm sure we'll come up with a lot of other good ones. We've had child abuse on this great broadcast. And I know that as the trends continue, we're going to get to a lot of the main things that we need to get to. But we aren't dodging anything. We are not dodging anything. Anything else you want to add?
No, I've said everything that I need to say here tonight. I'll just simply close out by saying, everyone, continue to be safe out there and take the proper precautions that you need to take during this time.
All right, you're listening.
We can't stress that enough.
You are listening to the Real and the Rare WSAN Network. All right, Xavier, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at XTMCKNIGHII. The 2 I's at the end are both capitalized. You can follow me on Instagram at XMCKNIGH22. You can send me a friend request on Facebook simply just by typing in Xavier McKnight. You can send me a follow request on LinkedIn just by typing in Xavier McKnight as well.
And you can reach us over at Tribune South. We have Twitter at Tribune South. Facebook, South Florida Tribune. Like the page, you get updates. Instagram, South Florida Tribune. Follow us there. YouTube channel, we have one there, South Florida Tribune. If you can count to 3, 1, 2, 3, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel. We'll be doing a lot of good videos on the YouTube channel. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. We have lots of good information from our media distribution partners as well as our columnists. And you can also find the broadcast there. Email southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Gets it done. LinkedIn. My name is Scott Morganroth. You can go ahead and connect with me. And, of course, the one thing that you can also find our podcast, wherever you get your podcast, you can also pick up the Real and the Rare. We're on every major one from iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, just to name a few. So, folks, you know, what can I tell you? This is a broadcast that we wish we did not have to do. But that's okay. I like a lot of these broadcasts that we wish we didn't have to do, because that means that we are sending you a stern message. And that stern message tonight, folks, as you enter the weekend, we ask you to be safe, be respectful of others, wear a mask, social distance. Kudos to the first responders. Go ahead, Xavier, add a few more to them.
Well, there's nothing more for me to reiterate from what you just said, because I utter those words and second them completely 100%. Just asking everyone to be safe, take the proper precautions, wear a mask, please continue to wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face, and please social distance. Please continue to practice social distancing.
All right, well, with that said, you are listening to The Real and the Rare. I want to thank you very much for a job well done, Xavier McKnight. And I'll tell you what, folks, we're looking forward to the next edition of The Real and the Rare. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.